Hello, Youth Ministry Land. We are here with another exciting episode of Truth Bombs with the Saints. Today's saint is Saint George, which, Father David, if I remember correctly, you made a comment when you signed up for Saint George. What was your comment?
My comment was Curious George.
Curious George.
Too good. Or it could have been George of the Jungle.
Georgie Porgy.
Georgie Porgy. There you go, Father Jacob. Excellent. Excellent. So today I am with
banana sundaes or something.
Oh,
hey, George.
Georgia of the Jungle. Could have had a whole little theme song. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've already gone off the rails, so this is going to be fantastic. And today we have youth ministry volunteer Miss Sarah. You all know and love Sarah Meeker, and we have Father David back with us again. Father David, I told you could talk a little bit about your podcast with the dear Father Kyle. So, well, what's up with this podcast? What's going on?
Yeah, so I think both Father Kyle and I, we like to talk to people. I know it's a weird thing in today's culture and current pandemic. Talking to people, being with people is something that we're told not to do. And yet that is something that we genuinely feel is needed more than any other time. So Father Kyle and I, we just talk to each other and kind of describe what our week's like as priests, kind of our perspective, what we're doing through this, how we, just as two crazy kids from Botkins, Ohio, because we both grew up in Botkins, are living life and still trying to live for the kingdom of God and to be good priests in today's world. So, it's just a little podcast. I think it's on Father Kyle Schnippel's public Facebook as well as his blog. And It's on sometimes tagged into my Facebook page, but I don't get too involved in the social media. I'm just happy to hear from Father Kyle and then give my 2 cents, and people can join in if they want to.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You guys talked about Divine Mercy Sunday. It was very enjoyable last week. So always good to hear your voices and hear your opinion of what's going on. As long as you don't talk about staff people, we're good.
Those are under agreement.
Is it recorded in Botkins? Because I could just imagine the train going by while you're trying to record, like, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, so
wait a minute.
Where the train goes by, right?
The train is actually, it's probably the same train that goes by Botkins, Ohio. But it would be an hour later going to Botkins. But it goes literally a block, no more than 100 feet out my window here. I'm looking over. Right there, the train. So there's a train. The conductor wants to be a part of the podcast. I think everybody, it'd be great.
Yeah. Just as an aside, one night I did a vocations talk up near Father Doseck's house. We were both seminarians. And he's like, how'd you sleep? I'm like, what time does that train go by in the middle of the night?
And what I say, like, what train?
Yeah, what train? Things are loud when you're not used to them.
Father Jacob, I too am a West Sider. I went to Mount St. Joe and grew up at St. Ives, so I know you were a St. Antoninas boy. West Side, Best Side, we won't say it too loud. But not many trains around here, are there, in West Side?
Right. Actually, there's one you could hear from my house, the one down by the river, but it's pretty far away. It's kind of more just like a scenic sound. It's not the raging one going right through town.
Your house doesn't
that's
shake.
What I was used to. Yeah.
We'll have stop conversations or scream to be heard over it, whichever the case may be. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. So, Father Jacob, where are you? Oh, great. You know what? The kids might know your face from Encounter. You've been helping with Encounter, so some of our teenagers will know you from that. But where are you assigned, and what are you up to in the pandemic?
Right. So, I'm here on the east side now. I've been stationed over here for 2 years at the east side region is what they call it, St. Cecilia's, St. Margaret, St. John's, and St. Anthony's, so a region of 3 parishes. And, loving life over here. And during the pandemic, it's a lot of what everyone else is doing, taking a lot of walks, right? And doing a lot of Zoom calls. and yeah, trying to do ministry in the midst of all this. So yeah, still doing, anointing people, that kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of it is, well, I have seminarians now living with me too, which is great. So we have a community here. It's kind of like an oratory, little piece of seminary. So we have fully hour together each day, mass together. And then yeah, trying to reach out to people over the phone. And yeah, just trying to take the time to study and pray too. So yeah, that's a lot of it.
Yeah. Now, which seminarians are with you over there?
So I have Louis Jackman, who's about to be ordained a deacon on Saturday. So that's super exciting. And then Tony Sanatato. And then Tony Loskamp is from this parish, so he lives down the street. So yeah, it's a good number of guys. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the sanitation man has done truth bombs with the saints. He went with us to Steubenville last year. So our kids know Tony very well. So that's exciting. And yeah, so I figured there was one of them. I couldn't remember if you had Isaiah or not, but it was Tony who you have over there in that region. So that's great. Okay, today's saint is St. George. So who wants to go first saying what they like about St. George or something they find interesting about George? Father David, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Yeah. Basically just a man of the Roman Empire and the Roman army, and didn't want to deny his faith in Jesus Christ. And so because of that, faced persecution, and he didn't back down. And so he became a martyr for the faith in our early church. And then from that moment, veneration of him, but, kind of, what are these stories? And so it became more of medieval lore, and some of the beautiful poems and beautiful stories in the medieval time period of the church, mindful of the Crusades, and also the Crusades going out to, if you will, battle for the Lord and for his case, although not all the Crusades, unfortunately, were as holy as they should have been, or as just as some should have been. They, flew under that patronage of St. George, kind of martyr. And that's where I always start is, where the history says kind of some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Father Jacob, what do you like about St. George? What intrigues you about St. George?
Right. So, yeah, I'm grateful that Father David filled us in with the background. Yeah. So, of course, obviously, we usually see St. George, slaying the dragon, right? He's the one there slaying the dragon or on the white horse. That's, that's St. George, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I love about him is we just need a patron like that in our days, especially for men, just to realize we need that masculinity there, just like not being afraid to stand up, not being afraid to fight evil, not be afraid to stand up for the dignity of women and truth and all these things that men are called to be. And I was recently just watching, kind of an aside, but I was just watching a little documentary. You could watch it on Formed. I think it's on Father Copan, guy who's, I don't know if he's venerable now or not, but anyways, he's kind of on the path to sainthood. And it's great that he was one thing that his soldiers, so he was a military chaplain. And after he passed away, his men in his army and his unit or whatever, they had a saying and they put it on his tombstone. It said, he was all man and all priest. And I just love that, that he was like who he was called to be. He was just like totally masculine, totally a man for the guys and for his soldiers, laying down his life for other men, but just like totally living out his faith in that, laying down his life for Christ firstly, and then living that in his manhood. So realizing that saints, whether they're men and women, they are not pansies ever, right? Instead of, when they fall like the rest of us, but just the fact of we need those strong saints, and we need to be not afraid in our lives. And I think we don't know maybe as many details as we like about St. George. I think he's a great witness for that, like slaying the dragon, just not being afraid, and having that confidence in Jesus Christ, and then just moving forward with that. So that's something, that I admire.
Yeah, beautiful, wonderful. Miss Sarah.
So finding out that I was going to be on this call 4 minutes before I popped up Wikipedia and don't have much about St. George, but that seems to be normal for me on these Saint Bombs things, so whatever. But I'm skimming through here and notice that he is one that his intercession is beneficial in repelling snakes, go figure, and curing mental ailments. And right now, with all of the pandemic stuff going on, and the struggles that some of us are having with being isolated and not having that daily contact with people, and the mental issues that come with that, I just think that's kind of important right now. So thought that was cool.
That is very, very cool. I hear a lot about St. George because I teach confirmation, and St. George happens to be the patron saint for the Boy Scouts. So if you have a confirmation candidate who's a Boy Scout, they usually like George. Sebastian is another one, patron saint of sports. I get those a lot too. So I hear a lot about George. And though there are two things that I was reading about today that really struck me. One is there are a lot of legends surrounding St. George, as there are a lot of our early saints. We don't have, books of writings about them from that era. But I loved this sentence. St. George is an object of a vast amount of imagination. And they go on to say that he was willing to pay the supreme price to follow Christ is what the church believes, and that is enough. That's what we need. And I think that's just awesome. Stories of martyrs, I don't know how they do it, but it's pretty incredible. And the other thing was, because he was a soldier, I loved that it said that during the Crusades, England, they considered him the knight, and he was Our Lady's knight. And that referred to, he was the Blessed Virgin Mary's knight and her soldier. So when you think of a knight serving a lady for St. George, that would have been serving Mary herself, Mama Mary. So that's a very cool little thing that I found today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was something
that
was something new for me today. So it was actually a whole article just published about St. George. Little unknown or little trivia things that have kind of slipped through the cracks of history. So very cool. Okay, Father David, are you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
Are you? You ready?
Bomb everything right now. Here we go.
Here we go. Okay, and I think you may have answered this question once before for another saint, but we'll see. If St. George were an item on the McDonald's menu, which item would he be?
Man, oh man, which item would he be? I would have to do the banana split, only because of beautiful, curious George and a little connection. That's it. Mostly because I just want ice cream. And I did. I thought through all of the types of ice cream and all of the McFlurries that McDonald's provides, and I arrived at the banana split.
You go. Well, I was thinking if I had asked Wendy's, I think St. George would be a spicy nugget. He'd be spicy chicken. He'd have a little kick, don't you think? Yeah. Defeating, slaying the evil. I think he'd have to be spicy chicken.
That's right.
So there we go.
I thought about maybe like chicken strips, kind of shaped in a sword, maybe. I don't know.
Special edition.
Be dangerous.
Special edition. Yeah. We'd have to take little toothpicks and make the little handles of the swords, but it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's what I would do. I don't know.
That's what you would do. That's a good one. Okay. Father Jacob, here you go. If St. George had a restaurant, what would it be called?
What would it be? How about Georgie's Fried Dragon?
Oh, Georgie's Fried Dragon. It sounds like
something like that.
It sounds
Georgie's,
like a
maybe
Chinese.
his hot wings. Maybe he'd like fry up the dragon wings or something. I don't know.
See, again, they would be spicy, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Gotta be spicy.
But the second you said dragon, I was thinking, would it be Chinese? It could be Chinese.
Right.
Because you have the golden dragon,
All you can eat, yeah.
All you can eat.
I do remember on a very crazy trip out west, there's a random stop somewhere on I-70 and it's George's Donuts. So there you go. You could probably get St. George's Donuts somewhere on I-70 West.
That I will not be driving
great.
anytime soon since mission trip got canceled. Wah, wah. Sad, but it's good because, protect the kids and all that. It's important too. So,
Sure.
okay, great. Miss Sarah, who would St.
dear.
George be in Harry Potter?
Ooh, who would St. George be in Harry Potter? So there's a reference in here to him being Wolf. So I'm thinking like either Lupin, Professor Lupin, because of the whole wolf thing, werewolf, yeah. Or maybe Sirius Black.
Ooh.
He's kind of a good guy too.
Mhm.
Both of those. Or a mix of, yeah. That's what I'm going with.
I take that. I'm very impressed. That's a good one. Look at you. You know your Harry Potter lore well too. That's great.
Yeah, I do.
There
I
you
have no
go.
idea about Harry Potter, so I just looked it up, like, serious. Because I remember in the movies that I watched, I know, don't judge me, Sarah, I have not read the books. The movies I have watched, I just remember a dragon appearing at some moment in the game.
Yes.
And, yeah, like the
Captain
Hungarian
Tournament, of course.
Dry Wizard and the Goblet of Fire.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There you go, whichever movie that was of however many they had.
Yeah, Cedric Diggory. Isn't that the one who ends up dying? That would be
Yes.
he'd be a martyr.
It is.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, there we go. There we go. Look at Father David's so proud of himself. If you use Siri well.
Like this right here, I think, has let the world move in some small or great ways.
Mhm. Yes, and the
Sadly,
downfall too. Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. The way most things are in this world. Okay, Father David. It's a good one. Are you ready? And you may not call it banana split. I'm going to tell you that. Can't go back to bananas.
Bananas unite.
Yes. If St. George had a private island, what would he call it?
Oh, I remember in looking up the great resource, which is Wikipedia, they called the lance of, like, the sword was called an Ascalon. And then they said that was the name of an aircraft that Winston Churchill used, which I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting historical fact.
Wow.
But if it was an island, I probably would name it that, Ascalon. After the lance.
Wow. Deep thoughts by Father David making all those connections. I find it so interesting that St. George was not British, and yet the British love their St. George. That seems to happen with a lot of saints.
Indeed.
So yeah. he was not English, was he? Or British, or however you want to say it. So okay. Father Jacob.
Right.
If St. George broke a world record, what world record would he break?
What world record would he break? Well, it probably would not be eating the most hot dogs in 10 minutes or whatever it is. I don't see, no chestnut. Probably not the hot dog one. Let's see, well, they say he's on a white horse, so maybe, for barrel racing or something like that. Barrel racing with his steed.
There you go.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's very.
I thought about javelin toss.
Oh, there you go. That might be the winner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Ascalon.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, look at you making the connection back. So impressed.
Yeah.
I
think all the other ones that would be with George.
Do they have some kind of don't know, it's not an Olympic sport, I don't think, but yeah, you know, so like knights normally have their lance when they're on their horse. Are there any sports like that for world records?
Mm.
I don't know, but they have
I don't
world
know.
In the
records.
U.S., maybe
Maybe.
other countries.
Who knows?
They've got called
Yeah.
what is it called? Gosh darn it! They're on the horseback and jousting. Is that it?
Jousting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
jousting. Yeah.
Jousting, that's it.
Mhm.
I was thinking about that. I was like, oh man, I wonder how many times you'd probably go charging ahead and get back up.
I could see St. George, if he could travel through time, he would totally love the medieval fair, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He'd come
Right.
back just for those and then make fun of how silly they were. But I think he would love to come and joust with whoever was willing to do it that day, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. That is great. Okay. Now I'm going to think about St. George on his horse all the rest of today. Okay. That might help you, Sarah, with the next question.
Okay.
B word. No. If St. George were a genre of music, what music would he be?
A genre of
Mm-hmm.
music.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all I have in my head right now is a horrible Heath Ledger movie. What's it called? Where he was the knight. Was it
Knight's Tale, was that it?
yeah, The Knight's Tale. It was all like really bad. Well, it's not. I mean, I like the music, but it like does not fit medieval times at all. Like
Mhm.
rock music.
Right.
Oh.
Like We Will Rock You and
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
weird.
That's
Weird.
what popped into my head because I'm thinking of George in like medieval knight, whatever now,
Right.
because of the whole
Mhm.
jousting thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the answer.
I mean, would George like the whole rock music? I think he might. I could see him like popping in the earbuds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if he's like brandishing a sword.
That Father Jacob, because that was an awful movie.
I never saw it, but I heard about it. Yeah.
Not a good score on Rotten Tomatoes then, right? Not a good one at all. Okie dokie, back around to you, Father David.
Ready.
Are you ready? If St. George were a cooking utensil, what cooking utensil would he be? And I don't think you can say knife. I think you got to think about something else. Because knife would be too easy, because it's like a little sword, right? Oh, Sarah's going to help the audience. She's the audience help here.
Ready already. Go ahead, Sarah. That's awesome. You're ready.
A skewer.
A skewer. I was thinking about that.
It's true. It's true. A
Keep
skewer.
your dragon pieces together with the vegetables.
There you go.
Especially at George's Dragon restaurant, or yeah. Little skewer.
The knife or something sharp always works. I mean, it just works.
Yeah.
Becky, I don't know, man. I mean, if you wanted to do it like butter knife, be very specific.
I was thinking too, what's that called? The mandolin that slices the vegetables?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
anything that's sharp like that, or even an egg slicer. I really like a good hard-boiled egg sliced through the egg slicer, so that's where my brain is. See, you want ice cream, I want a hard-boiled egg.
I'm gonna go with Father David on that one and go for the ice cream.
No hard-boiled egg.
No, not a fan.
Not a fan. Okay. Father Jacob, what was St. George's nickname when he was in school?
Oh man.
With a name like George.
Yeah, I kind of got a little story here if I could. So
Yeah.
this goes back to one of my great uncles. This was years ago, right? And his name was George, and he actually, maybe similar to St. George, he went on to become a great archer, and I think he went to the Senior Olympics and won something. But anyways, his nickname, he would always it was the very early, it was like early 1900s or whatever, when he was in school. And so a lot of times they wouldn't even wear shoes, when they're walking to school, they put on their shoes after, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he wears boots every day, so his nickname was Boots. So I'm just going to go after maybe my Uncle George and nickname him Boots. How about that? And he could
I
ride
love
his steed
that.
with Boots too, and yeah, so we'll just go with Boots.
I
Boots.
like it.
I like it too. I have an Uncle George. My dad's brother is George. And when my aunt signs cards from them, it says, love, Peg, and Geo. So it says Geo. She doesn't even put it all out. It's just Geo. But George is a great one. Georgie Porgy. I mean, you could just go in so many directions with George. But yeah. And my brother-in-law's dad is a George, and he was a sweet, sweet man. So must be something about the name. And Boots sounded like a great man too. And Mom probably wasn't happy he wore his boots every day to school. Okay, Miss Sarah, what film would represent his life the best?
Oh, I don't.
Father Kyle totally cheated on this one the one time because he used The Mission. Like, no, you can't use The Mission.
So I'm not allowed to do that.
Not allowed to use The Mission. That was cheating. Totally cheating.
He wasn't wrong.
Because they're singing. Mm-hmm.
I don't. A movie? Really? A film?
A film?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have a good one for this one, Brinky.
I think of George Bailey.
George Bailey.
Oh, It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Huh.
I don't know if
In
that
a
would be
lot
us,
of
but-
ways, that would be interesting. How would the world be different if St. George hadn't existed?
Mm,
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good. What film represents their life the best?
But yeah, that'd be it. I don't know.
I don't know of any good crusade movie. We've already talked a little bit about movies like that. I don't know why this came to my mind. Totally doesn't fit, but Wally just came to my mind, and I don't see St. George as a Wally. Don't ask me where that came from. It's growing up in a Disney household.
Your Dragon?
Oh, yeah, that's
Did you
right.
just say Pete's Dragon?
No, How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, How to Train Your Dragon.
There's a few other movies like Dragonheart, I think.
I know. Like, that's what.
Yeah.
Possibly in there.
Yeah.
But then I also thought about, okay, what if you were in the military or in some, campaign of some sorts, and you like converted to some other higher ethical principle or something like that. So I thought, what about like, what's the one movie, The Patriot?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, The Patriot.
That might be something. But I also thought, what about like Ben-Hur? And, kind of like those soldiers back in that time who would hear about the story of Jesus and what would be their reaction to it. Those are the two, Ben-Hur and Patriot.
Nice.
Maybe Spartacus, like I Am Spartacus.
No, I Am Spartacus.
I Am Spartacus. Look, the kids won't get that at all. It's kind of sad.
At all. They look it up.
I had to the young adults yesterday, on a little side note, the young adults yesterday played a game called Who Said That? And I had Sarah, me, Father Kyle, our business manager, and Scott Morgan answer a set of questions, and they had to figure out who said which answer. Okay, I have no idea where I was going with that. What were we just talking about?
Spartacus? The kids would have to look it up.
Spartacus.
Oh, the kids would. Okay, so Scott Morgan's worst elementary school or middle school memory was about 9/11. Okay, he said, I was in the 7th grade when 9/11 occurred, and they're all trying to figure out if it was me. I said, you guys, at the end, I said, I have Abby, and I wouldn't have been in 7th grade. Abby was born before September. Anyway, it was just, yeah. They have some problems with math, Sarah. You gotta help them out. So
I wasn't their math teacher. It's not my fault.
not your fault. Yeah, it's amazing how they just kind of, yeah. But they finally figured it out. They're like, oh, how old is, yeah, they were very cute. It was a fun little game though. Very fun little game. They really don't know us at all, Sarah. That's my answer about that game. They don't know us.
Fun. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
I played a game once. Maybe this is something to introduce to your friends, huh? Everybody there in the youth group. But, you know, unfortunately, I fell asleep and somebody took my wallet. And in order to get back my wallet, which has all of my information in it, including my accounts and my license and everything, I had to tell the person who took it 2 things of their life and their history. And I would get it back piece by piece. And I tell you what, I learned so much about them in that moment of getting back my wallet. The wallet became superfluous. I was just so excited. But then I also turned the tables and I said, okay, you have to give me back an item if you can't, you know, say something about me.
Oh.
Without looking in my wallet and all the information.
It has my entire life.
Exactly. When's my birthday? You know, that it happened and it was a terrible thing because you're like, oh crap, I left it, somebody took it. And then it just turned into something really neat. I don't know. Hopefully you have good friends that actually give you back.
give you the stuff back.
Is something that is, you know, good friends. That's important.
Yeah, it was interesting. My own daughter and niece played, and there was stuff they did not know about me. It was really awesome that they would go, wait, is that really you? And I'd say, well, you know, it was kind of fun. Fun little game to play. We play a lot of fun games here in quarantine time. You just never know what's going to be next. So, Father David, if St. George was a painting, what would the painting be called? There are lots of paintings of him, so.
Yes. I would say Triumph on horseback. That's it.
Triumph on horseback.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And the horse would here. Have any of you ever desired to be on horseback and actually have a portrait displayed of you?
No, just you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great though, especially if an oil painting. Yeah, it's like you walk in someone's house, you see them on a horse, like posing. Wow. Okay.
We could put our like travel mask kits on the back of the horse and like look boss.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Baptize and sanctify the faithful.
That's one reason why I thought I did kind of dream about, like, if I was ever up north, I would just love to have a 4-wheeler and just make visits, like when weather's bad. Like, oh yeah, that'll be something.
I've gone on horseback while I've been here. Yeah.
There
you
go.
have?
There you go.
Yeah. Not surprised.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
fantastic.
On Friday.
That's great.
We talk about, with the kids at St. John Neumann, patron saint being St. John Neumann. St. John Neumann was a very tiny man, and we've taken some of the kids to his shrine, and he's in a glass, see-through, beautiful coffin. It's part of the altar in the shrine, and he was a short man. Well, he loved to just give his money away, which actually a lot of criticism came upon him as bishop because he would constantly give the money to the poor, and they always said, well, you're a bishop, you should dress better and you should have, you know, nicer things, and he would constantly give it away to the poor. Well, so he it seemed like from what we know about him is he never really owned his own horse. So he would borrow a horse and a saddle, but he was so small, he would kind of like bounce around. So I think St. George probably rode a horse significantly better than St. John Neumann ever did, because I don't know that he ever had a saddle that fit him, poor St. John Neumann. Yeah, there's all sorts of cute little stories about John Neumann that we find for the kids. I love patron saints, and I love teaching them. Yeah, teaching them about their patron saint is awesome. I hope everyone who's watching it, I hope you already knew that, and you've been listening to me over these years. Maybe. Okay. Father Jacob, If St. George was an app on your phone, what app would he be?
Oh man. I guess going back to what I was saying earlier, right? Like just his manliness, you know, helping us to fight evil and grow and good. Like just an app maybe to help us limit our time on our phone, or like some kind of warning or blocker or something to just help us grow in holiness, right? To be that person not afraid to say like, nope, you know, or just have limits, to have those boundaries. So yeah, I could see him like a timer, like, okay, only like this amount of time on this app, or, you know, your apps or social media, whatever it is, just to be that guard, to be the one not afraid to say no. And so that would be his app. Kind of like the one you think of the bad guy sometimes, really like doing the good thing that we need. So
Yeah.
all these St. George's app, yeah.
I would say though, when your time was up, that dragon fire goes across your screen.
That would be epic.
It like looks like it burns.
Your time is up.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah, we
so
need that.
awesome. We really
Yeah.
need an app like that. Who's ever listening? Oh, my son could probably develop it. Go develop that and be.
There you go.
Make us some money, honey, right? You got to take care of me in my old age. Hopefully someone does. Sarah, Georgie
Yes.
Porgy, St. George.
Yes.
When St. George gets up in the morning, what do you think he does first?
First thing in the morning, huh? He brushes his teeth to get rid of the dragon breath.
After all the battles he's
And then he
fought.
probably prays because, you know, he's holy.
I know. He's
I think
holy.
he'd probably be like Rocky and just, you know, eat raw eggs.
Right.
He's ready. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All those muscles and yeah.
Right.
Right.
A little
I don't
fun.
quite know what 80s montage
Right.
enjoy.
And maybe he'd do eat hard-boiled eggs with his specialty slicer, you know, in the morning.
Yeah, see, egg slicer.
Full circle all the way back.
How curious. Oh, that's good.
You know, it would be a good name for a gym. St. George's Gym
Oh yeah,
actually would be.
that'd be great.
It feels like George is almost like a John, you know, kind of a normal, but not. I don't know. It seems like a name you could put with a, you know, George
Right.
Shop, George this, George Church. You know,
Right.
no, it just seems like a very common name. That's me though.
Yeah, when you said gym, it reminded me of the old Gold's Gym when they would just have those shirts with like somebody who's completely like overly muscle bound. If it just said St. George's Gym, that would be great.
Again,
I'm just like ripped.
On a horse.
with the
He's
sword, you know,
right.
he's all ready to
Bigger
go.
than the horse. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm. All ready to go. Okay, we have time for one more round. Okay, one more round. Here we go. Father David.
I'm buying. All right, here we
Okay.
go.
What was St. George's first word?
Mom.
Probably very true.
Because I think at least the history that his dad died and his mom had to take him back to Palestine.
Mm,
That's the only reason why I said.
Mom.
That's it.
Yeah, and if he was Our Lady's Night, then that gives a double meaning to it, because Mom,
Yeah.
That's right.
your heavenly mama and your earthly mama. So good. Yes, Mom would be.
And I also try not to, you know, make the saints more than what they are.
Yeah.
Like us.
That's right.
You know,
Just
their
saying.
first words are probably the same words that we have. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we got saints that probably had speech impediments. You know, it didn't stop them from becoming holy at all.
That's right.
Just, you know, there you go.
There you go. Very, very true. Wow. Again, deep thoughts by Father David. We just never know what's going to come out of your mouth. I don't know if that's good or bad. So, Father David, I just had a vision of driving down the road to Franciscan University at Steubenville and you trying to clothespin the van next to us.
Yeah, it was great.
That was great. Those are
Wanted them
good
to be-
memories.
I wanted them to be our friends forever.
I think they had an Ohio license plate, so you just figured they'd be our friends forever.
Yeah, and a clothespin is a sure sign and gesture of friendship.
Especially on your way to a Steubenville conference, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Though I will say, I was not driving the vehicle, and I don't have that far of a reach, Becky.
You can ask David Morand how I drive vans sometimes, because in DC, we're going down the street and on mission trip, and he's driving, and I would be screaming about, oh, the kids have great stories about this. I'd be screaming about him hitting the trees, you know, so the mirror would be hitting the trees on the side of the road, and he'd be yelling back, at least I'm not hitting the cars on this side of the van. So that was when he was driving. So yeah, I'm not much better.
Who got the speeding tickets in
That
DC?
I got the speeding ticket in DC. And I'm a very good youth minister. Just remember, when your youth minister gets a speeding ticket, it comes out of her budget. I just threw it on the business manager's desk and said, I wouldn't have had this if I had not been in DC. Please pay it. And she goes, oh, okay. So it got paid. The generosity of the church. I mean, they had me doing 28 and a 25 or something ridiculous because it's DC and they clock you. Yeah, it was, we're just donating to the Metro of DC. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, this is a whopper, Father Jacob. We'll see what you do with this one.
All right.
And it's actually really good for St. George. What would be St. George's wrestling name? And what would be the name of his signature move?
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to open this one to everyone. I don't know, to get something really good. What would be his name?
The WWE experts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be his name?
Sarah, are you Googling something?
I am, because he was a wrestler back in the 40s and 50s.
Who was it, George?
George.
Yeah, the move might just have to
I was
be
looking to see if he had a
Dragon
signature
Slayer.
move.
Dragon Slayer, yeah.
Dragon Slayer might have to be the name of the move.
Of the move, yeah.
But what would his name be? Wrestling name? I don't know. What do you guys think? Talked a lot about George.
We'll play on words. There is such a thing as the St. George Cross. How about crossing George? That's a good kind of intimidating name, you know. You try to cross George, crossing
George. Ooh, a play on words there. He could even have it on his little outfit or his cape or whatever he does. Yeah.
Right.
Well, St. George Cross.
Nobody double crosses George.
Nobody double crosses George.
Yeah. What would be the montage? Yeah. What would be what he would say? Just as he comes out.
Right. It would definitely have fire shooting out of somewhere.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. There's got to be fire from something.
Yeah, there would definitely be
He'd probably come out like a knight. He'd come out like a knight in
Ooh, yeah.
armor, maybe on horseback, and then throw it down.
Right.
You could have people in the crowd be like Chinese dragons, and they would have the big long tails spread in the crowd. Yeah. Aren't they doing? I think they're still doing WWE right now, but there's no crowd. Is that right?
In empty stadiums, yes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, everything was pay-per-view anyway, so.
Yeah.
I just think it would be weird to not have people there, because the whole, not that I've watched a lot of it, but like a whole big part of that is the screaming and yelling of the crowd. Mm-hmm. So if it's in an empty room, there's like nothing to play off of, but whatever.
It must be hard to do wrestling moves when you got a social distance. It's just like all about the scare tactics.
Wait, 6 feet away, I'm going to body slam you.
You just call out the move, and I body slam you, and then they talk. It would be weird. We had a discussion today at staff about depending what limitations they give us when we go back to public masses, what we're going to do. It was a very interesting discussion, you know. And then we started giggling about receiving Eucharist with a mask on, and do you go like this or do you, it was, yeah.
Right. Right.
We pray for the day, but I have a feeling it'll be an interesting world. So St. George, pray for us, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, Sarah, the very last question of the afternoon. Are you ready?
Sure.
If St. George were a scrumptious dessert, what dessert would St. George be?
Scrumptious dessert. We've been talking about him being so manly. He can't be a cream puff. That's just how.
No cream puffs.
Cream puff will not work.
No.
But once upon a time, I made cupcakes that were bourbon chocolate cupcakes. He would be a bourbon chocolate cupcake. Just saying.
He would.
The bourbon and the chocolate with like caramel icing. It was delightful. It would be perfect.
I feel like St. George would have been a bourbon man if he had been around.
So.
Yeah.
When bourbon was. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, he would have hung out on the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky with his horse. He would have fit in so well in Kentucky with his horse. Think about that. It'd be perfect. There you go. Maybe he should be the patron saint of Kentucky. We can suggest.
I mean, he has quite the list of patronages.
He does.
Including Ethiopia, of all places. Not really.
That was another white-dressed man known as the Colonel.
Yeah, right?
Fried chicken. I need Kentucky Fried Chicken. Love it. Those whiskers.
Well, Father David, I'm impressed. No train today.
Yeah, I know. The president, I guess, gave him a couple hours off, so that's nice.
Yeah, because usually you almost have to hold your walls when the train goes by. So, yeah.
I definitely go on mute. That's for sure.
Well, thanks so much for playing. This was wonderful. And I think we've done St. George. Definitely a little bit of kudos to St. George and to all of you too for joining us, because the kids love it, the adults love it. I have a little first grader who likes to give her opinion of what she would have answered. So I sometimes get a little email or, you know, we got fans out there, people. So anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
So we'll see you
so much,
later.
Peggy.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Bye, youth ministry kids. We love you. We're praying for you and we miss you dearly. Have a great day. Bye now.